Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, I didn't blow everybody's ears out. I'm impressed. Welcome to the June Delta Amateur Radio Club's membership meeting tonight. Appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for coming. With that, I'd love to take a minute and just say welcome again. And I'll reach out to our secretary. And Perry, would you call the roll real quick, please?
Yes, sir. President Joe Plum.
Present.
Vice President Tyler Henley.
He's in active duty.
Secretary Perry Hayes, present. Treasurer Paul Broom. Here. Director of Training Joe Lowenthal.
Here.
Computer Trustee Dan Fleet.
Here.
Director of Meetings and Special Events Scott Adams. Director of Programs Adam White.
Present.
Director of Publications Mike Harrison. Present. And Club Historian John Reiners. We do have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Perry. I appreciate that. With that, I need to do a real quick, I try not to take board business at membership meetings, but I need to do a real quick piece of board business at this meeting. So since the board does have a quorum, I'd like to call a quick board meeting, real quick, super quick. It's just something real that we need to take care of. With that, board members, we are going to call a meeting. Would you just acknowledge that we're in board meeting right now?
Yep.
All right, we're in a board meeting. All right, the topic of the meeting is Mr. Mike Harrison. Mike, I believe you had something you wanted to say?
Yep. After 4.5 years of serving as the Director of Publications, found a suitable replacement, and he's done a really great job. So I'd like to submit my resignation as Director of Publications of Delta Club.
Well, Mike, it is sad to see you go, but with that, we do accept your resignation and thank you for your 4.5 years of service. We very much appreciate that. All right, with that vacancy that we now have open, I'd like to ask the Board of Directors to accept Jonathan Urschel as the appointment that I would like to make to fill the Director of Publications. With that,
I so move.
Joe Lowenthal has moved to accept Mike Urschel as the Director of Publications. Is there a second? Seconded by Adam. All right, board members, if you are in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? Welcome to the board, Jonathan. Thank you so very much. All right, just to finish everything out real quick, I move to adjourn the board meeting. Seconded or made by Dan and seconded by Adam. So the board meeting, all in favor of adjourning the board meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Appreciate the membership enduring that for just a minute. That's a quick piece of board business. Mike, thank you again for your 4.5 years of service. Jonathan, welcome aboard. All right, let's take an opportunity and have a nice welcome activity that we haven't done in a while. Because we've got a good crowd, and it's field day, and it's about being active on our radios. I'd like to ask everyone, we'll start, we go, which way do we go? That way. We start over here with Dan, and ask you to stand up, introduce yourself, and let us know what your favorite radio contact has been.
Okay, I'm Dan, AA4DF.
Is yet to come.
Trying to think.
We're all going to be here.
Hey, it's only an hour meeting now. Come on.
I don't know. I remember I used to live in Indiana and was on a volunteer fire department there and had really good friends. And when DMR started up, they did a private call on DMR and found me. And we chatted for a while. And the assistant chief, who isn't a ham, but he was able to talk on the radio with me while my other buddy was there. I don't know. That's one I remember for a while. Just reconnecting with someone.
Well, thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Reconnecting was his favorite contact. Oh, we'll go over to Josh.
All right, so you gave me a second to think about this so I can get my thoughts, and I even had to use my phone to find one thing.
Yeah, Dan would have the hard job of being first, so
I know.
thank you, Dan, for going first.
Took the heat off, right? So I'm Josh, KQ4 iOS. I guess my first contact that I made was, I had to look it up, July 7th, 2023 at 7 o'clock at nighttime. I was with Aaron Alexander, KI4OTH, and we were on his front porch, and I contacted George Rupel from Ohio, and I remember it because I got his card in the mail the following week. And so I remember, I still have it too.
Good.
And he confirmed me on QRZ. That's my first contact.
Fantastic. All right, next.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt, KQ4YPO. I haven't gotten any contacts yet, except I've called the net several times.
That counts too.
My name is Clemenoid Bookji, KQ4TQV. So far, I don't have any favorite contacts that I have, but I have made I've just contacted the net twice so far. That's about it.
Those are good. Those count.
Him?
W4GMM, and I have 3.
That works.
First one is JY1,
The king.
King Hussein of Jordan. Of course, he's deceased now. Second one is Ronnie Millsaps, the country music. He is also a ham. And the third, and probably the most exciting one, was the night that I got my novice license. I got on the radio, sat down at my radio, hooked it up to a 150 watt light bulb, and sat there practicing my call. And a young lady about 3 blocks away came back to me on the light bulb.
Okay, Ian, I'm just gonna preemptively, I'm gonna give you an extra ticket for that. Nothing can top that. Thank you, sir.
Caution, with transistor transmitters, you do not load to a light bulb.
All right, Don?
Later he got the Worked On Neighbors Award.
I'm Don, KZ4GJ, and I've got 2 contacts that I really like, and I don't remember the call signs for either one of them, but one of my first contacts on HF was to a guy named Komatsu in Japan.
Wow.
And I talked to him, and then there's a guy named Pete that runs the Southern Cross Net in Australia. So I caught both those pretty early on, and I was pretty excited about both of those.
I'm Barry Smith, and I passed the technician exam tonight.
If you're gonna see me, I'll give you an extra ticket.
I'm Scott, KQ4TGW, and I haven't been a ham very long, but so far the most memorable has been busting a pileup in Rotterdam. And I was watching the guy on YouTube, but I could hear him on the radio. I was calling him on the radio, but I was watching him, and I had a Linko DX70 that was, I don't know, it's got to be at least 15 or 20 years old, and I don't think it's putting out 100 watts. And somehow I broke through, and he heard me, and I got so excited.
Probably 40 years old.
Yeah, I don't. Well, at least 20. At least 15. At least 15.
Probably 40.
All right, Joe, you want to give us your favorite contact?
Well, I've got 2, actually 3. First
What's your call sign?
Huh?
Who are you? What's your call sign?
WA4OVO, Joe. The first one was when I passed the test. It took 2 months to come in, and I had moved, so I knew the other people in the class had gotten their license in the mail, and Marshall Robilio was already using my call sign because he forgot to look at the slant on WA4OVQ. And so I called up the postmaster at Whitehaven, WB4, trying to think what his call is now. I was trying to almost WB4FC.
TZJ was it?
Hmm?
What TZJ was?
Yeah, TZJ. I'm trying to think of the name now.
I
But anyway, he was the postmaster at Whitehaven, and I asked him, I said, I think my ticket is in the mail, and he said, it is here. I went, picked it up, he got in his car, I had a handy talkie, and we made our first contact that day. The second item was talking to Doug Wheelock on the International Space Station, and having lunch with him here in Memphis at Corky's several years later. And the third was I was working ships on the air in Kittery, Maine at the memorial for the submarine that was lost, the Thresher. And I was talking on 20 meters and talked to a ham who said that he was a Navy pilot, he had been a Navy pilot in the Mediterranean and was coming back to the States. And they loaded up full of fuel to look for the sub. And now, that's the three. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very memorable. I'm Tom, AC5MR. I got two. The first one was contacting the Mir Space Station. Commander Valerie Kazorn was the commander at that time, but John Blaha, the American, was on board. And there was 3 passes that night. And the very last pass, John Blaha took a break, and Valerie Kazorn was on. And they were just going over the curve of the Earth over Florida heading to Africa. And I had a 13 B2 70 foot on my tower in Starkville, and it happened to be pointing right at me. I only had a 5-watt handy talkie. And so I broke the United States pilot up. He came back to me, so I got a contact with him. Second one was Aeronautical Mogul, commercial airliner flying over Brazil, coming back to the States. The navigator was on his brake, and he happened to tune the 20-meter band radio to the ham bands. He was a ham and was making contacts, and I broke in and got a contact with him. Can't remember the name or call sign. Those are my two.
I'm Bob, KM4SCB, and my first contact after I got tech license was with David Jackson, KM4SEC. And that was it.
I'm Jim, N4VOK. My first contact was with a guy named Frank Mackey, N4GUS. I think that's the one that sticks in my mind the most. He's silent key now. That was the first one.
I'm Jeff, AJ4GY, and one that sticks out to me is when we were working field day. I ran into N3FJP, and when you put his call sign in, it says, "Hey, I wrote this, say hi." And so I said hi to him, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it does. When you put it in, yeah.
I'm Dave, AD4Q. A lot of them come to mind. I've had a license since 1956. And one of my earliest contacts was a one-way contact. I lived in Seattle and I got a card in the mail from the FCC in Anchorage, Alaska. That was my longest one for a while. I also worked, this has been probably 20 years ago, I worked Leo Morrison. You older guys remember him maybe. He owned World Radio Laboratories in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And they used to sell all kinds of ham equipment all over the country. And right after he retired, he started operating a lot. And I got to talk to him for probably an hour on 20 meters one time. I remember that one. That was a good one for me. But the FCC stuck in my mind. What happened was I had a old Globe Scout transmitter, and you had to tune it up just right or it would work real good on a harmonic. And the harmonic, I was on 80 meters, and the harmonic on 40 was just a little bit out of the novice band. names.
Let's go to the back table back there with Paul and Perry and Scott.
I'm Paul, KY4MX, and I would say probably my most memorable contact I actually made just a couple of weeks ago. I was driving back from Huntsville, and I made a contact with a guy from New Zealand on 2 meters.
Wow.
But he actually happened to be in the car behind me.
That's almost as good as the light bulb.
I'm Scott, KM4PMU. I guess really my first contact would be with you. No. Many years ago.
That's a good one. I'm Perry Hayes, November 4 Golf Juliet. I guess the most exciting contacts, I'll probably have a few. The first one was our net control operators on the 8.2 net when I was brand new and had the HT, was probably holding it wrong and probably had a horrible antenna on it. Just their patience with me and working with me and encouraging me really meant a lot and really got me going in this hobby. 2019 in March, I discovered FT8, which is one of my favorite things to do. Really enjoy that, and I guess the most proud, I made a contact with a German station in Antarctica and actually talked to the guy a little bit on the chat window, so that was really cool. And there was some good propagation one day, and I actually talked to a guy on voice in Serbia, which is as far out as I've ever gotten on phone. So I guess for me, that's the top 3.
Can't go much further.
I'm Jim Mitchell, Kilo Romeo 4, Charlie Quebec Bravo. I guess I'm new tech, but I did talk to Solomon Island. That was pretty good trip.
Yeah.
Perry, you're up.
I'm Barry, Whiskey Bravo 4, Sierra Whiskey Papa. My first contact was probably Pat on 2 meters.
I'm Ned, KA4PLL. I've been on a long time on radio, 2-way. And my first memorable was a 1-way contact. I was using an oscillator from a bicycle. Didn't know I was getting out before. I had an antenna on it, which I should have had probably. And I was trying to get to another bicycle, a friend of mine, and a fella about 3 blocks away picked me up. And we've become real good friends and still are today. And that was George Flynn. That was back in 1956 when that happened. And on 10 meters, I made a contact to south of Sydney, Australia, one evening on a vertical beam, 3 element. And then the other contact I had was interesting fairly lately was on D-Star. And I did this twice with this guy on Sunday evening. I made a contact with a guy that is mobile going to work in Seoul, Korea. Mobile to mobile.
You can do it.
Mike? Mike, Kilo Mike 4, Mike Romeo Whiskey. I got my tech around 2015, but I live in Salisbury, which is like 3 counties over, so in Hardeman County, Salisbury, little town. So I wanted to hit the 8.2 repeater for a long time. So, you know, you buy an antenna, you buy a radio, then finally you get a mast up high enough. So I was able to make contact with Dave, AD4Q, on the 5.2 Simplex one day. So he's got a big tower, so I was able to make contact with him. So that was my first one, probably the most memorable one.
I should change mine. See, Mike was my favorite contact I ever had.
FCC was
my
better.
most memorable.
The FCC was much better.
I'm Joe, KO4BZD. I actually got my tech and general license in 2020, and then life intervened, and I've only recently begun operating again. My favorite contact so far is my first contact I've made this year, the first time I made it in 5 years. It was to a fellow up in Canada, can't recall his call sign or name, but apparently there was a contest going on, and they were in the Great Southern Plains of Canada and reached out and touched somebody up in Alberta, I think. So that was my favorite contact.
I'm Dan, KN4FPJ, Janet's KN4FBI, and probably our favorite contact is Perry, because we used to duo on them on Saturday nights.
Janet, KN4FBI, and kind of the Saturday Night Ladies Net. That's sort of where I got started, but a lot of the ladies aren't doing it anymore, so whatever.
Well, we'll have to get them back on the YL net.
I'm Randall, KY4MY, and I had, I think it was year before last, I bought one of the Xiegu X6100s, and I had a 40-meter inverted dipole I put up, and got on, and so this is less than, I don't know, maybe it was 8 watts. And I made a contact with a guy down in like South Georgia who was doing a park activation. So, and I was kind of interested in Parks on the Air, so that was my first introduction to that. So I liked it because it was, you know, the new radio and the low power and the distance and all.
Billy, WL4B. I'm an island hunter. I like to be at the island. So it's St. Helena, which is a very small island off the halfway off the coast of South America and Africa. It's a British overseas territory. There's only a handful of hands on there. It was actually used in World War II to counterattack the raiders, German raiders in the South Atlantic. That's kind of an interesting place. Antarctica, McMurdo Station. I've been chasing the South Pole Station for years, but never been able to talk to it. And did another one when I was in the Army in Korea. Would talk to Australia every night on 10-meter FM. We do a round table. So that's kind of an island, and Antarctica's kind of an island too. 10-meter FM every night to Australia. We do, you know, cheers and bills, mate.
I'm Rick, N0KYN, and I wasn't a ham at the time. I was a 16-year-old kid, and I got a job during the summer at Pat O'Brien Studios in Scottsdale, an art studio. And this was just after the election where Barry Goldwater didn't win. And so I got this assignment by the owner of the thing is to frame all these things with Barry Goldwater from his election in these black frames. So I got them all done, wrapped them up, and Pat says, deliver them. I said, deliver them to whom? And he says, Barry Goldwater. I said, okay, so I loaded up my dad's 58 Chevy station wagon, which I was driving at the time, and I worked my way up to the mountain top there in Phoenix, because we lived in Scottsdale at the time. I just drove up to the front of the door, front of the house and parked the car. There was nobody, it was like, there was no security, no nothing. So I rang the doorbell and this guy about this tall, short guy, in a pair of cut-off jeans and an old ratty t-shirt. And I said, hey, I'm here from Pat O'Brien Studios to deliver all these pictures to Barry Goldwater. He says, well, I'm Barry. And so I introduced myself. So now I was 16, but I was interested during the CV phase at that time. And he says, well, bring them out to my ham shack. And I'm going, ham shack? I said, is it food? And so we walk around the side of his house, and there's the pool, and there's this, like this pool house, and it had all these sliding doors on it. And we went in there, and there was all this radio equipment in there, and of course he had the towers up and everything. And he sat down with me for about an hour and a half and Elmered me on what ham radio was.
Wow.
So that was my first introduction to ham radio. I wasn't a ham, so I don't know if that really qualifies as being a contest.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. So, and the second one, kind of like, I'm bad on names. I was driving along Interstate 70. I lived in St. Louis, and I'm driving along Interstate 70 in the 90s, and my 2-meter radio is scanning the bands. And it locked in on this one, and I hear this guy talking to this other guy, and they're clearing out. They just didn't talk very long. And the one guy clears out and he goes, "This is N8MIR." That's a weird call. So I called him, and it was the Mir Space Station.
Oh my God.
And I said, and this guy, because his accent was heavy Russian, right?
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
And so we talked for about a minute and a half. And so I made contact with that one. And so that was probably one wasn't a ham, one was a berry. And then the third one was a good friend of mine. He used to be a cattle rancher up in North Dakota, and he moved, and he ended up in New Zealand owning a cattle ranch down there. And we would talk almost constantly when, this was in the 90s when the sunspot cycle was, it was, you could pick up the microphone and talk to whoever you wanted to. And we would always have a conversation going on, at least a weekly conversation. So, and then he passed away. So, and so and then I did talk to McMurdo Bay too. So that was interesting. You got to get on the air and you can hear all these times. It's being radioactive. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, Rick, it's Tom.
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 Hi.
He just didn't want to remember.
Yeah.
I'm Richard, K4DXF. My most memorable is Colonel Wheelock aboard the International Space Station on the vertical.
Rick, W84MBM, worked Colonel Wheelock on the ISS commander, at the time we all met him for lunch in Memphis years later. And the main thing that I filled my logbook up, or electronic logbook, was pages and pages, over the years was UT-1FG Captain Yuri, a ship captain from Ukraine. Odessa, Ukraine's his home. But I was chasing him on satellite grid squares in the ocean, so I lost, 500 plus that I worked him on. A lot of sleepless nights because you'd catch a pass coming and set your alarm, wake up, get in there and track the bird. There you go.
Yuri would divert to a grid square that Rick needed.
Well, I don't, what do you say about his needing?
That a grid square that you would need, he would divert sometimes to.
Oh yeah, he would have been known to move the ship over.
Change the ship.
Yeah.
Did you really do that, or did you say?
KO4WAQ, Jonathan. I haven't been a ham very long, so my most memorable contact was probably first one after I spent about 3 weeks calling CQ on my little Baofeng outside my house, and finally somebody came back to me and was like, hey, responded to me, That was kind of like, okay, there was actually somebody out here, because I've been trying and nobody hit me up, but that was it for me.
I'm Talo, KQ, for KLJ. I've been a ham a while, but no contacts yet.
You'll get there.
I haven't been trying to.
Steve, KK4 VPT. I don't know who it was, but I think most people do remember their first one. It was one Thanksgiving weekend. I thought, okay, I got 4 days off from work. I can set this thing up, and if I need some time, I can do it. Hooked it up, hooked up the antenna, turned on the radio, and called out CQ. And I mean, like right away, somebody answered back, and he was like up in Maine. And I thought, holy cow, this thing works. And then we carried it. It was clear. He said it was a good signal, and we talked for a while. It was such a good signal. We could talk for a while. And I thought, dang, this does work.
That's a great feeling, then.
Yeah.
Carolyn? I'm Carolyn in the KX4QF. I've got a couple. First one is K1JT, Joe Taylor from Princeton. He's the developer of FT8, and I logged him on FT8. Oh, cool. Wow. And the second one is BP8LP from Falkland Islands. He's a ham radio operator who alerted Britain that the Falkland Islands was being invaded. They didn't know it was a ham radio that alerted them that the islands were being invaded. That's cool.
I'm Will, AQ4FUM. My most memorable contact is probably, I'd say it was about a year ago. I was out with my friends from high school. I had a handheld radio and a aero directional antenna, the type of thing you use to contact satellites and stuff. But we were using it to contact repeaters around, because I was just showing them how it works, and the HT antenna wasn't very good that I had. So I was just using that. And we called, and I was there with all my friends, and I passed the antenna, or I passed the radio around to each of them and let them make a contact with that radio while I was holding the antenna and pointing it at the repeater. So that's probably my most memorable contact.
That's cool. Fantastic. Vernon, KQ4WCL. I talked to somebody in Iowa. My first contact.
Mark, KO4KQA. My most memorable contact was 2-meter simplex to a pilot flying through our area and be able to watch them on APRS in and out of the area fast.
You got to talk fast.
Tommy, K4BLZ. Probably my first DS contact. This is going back to the city times, the 80s. I just bought a big horizontal antenna, PDL2. I think it was like a small version of the Record 4. I have it in my garage. I'm a kid, I'm like 12 years old. I'm waiting for the weekend to come. My uncles to help me bring it up, right? I couldn't wait. I just got my Cobra 29 radio, connected it to the antenna in the garage, and I did my first DS contact with Colombia using just 4 watts in it. That blew my mind.
Bill, K4PSH. My first and most memorable is my dad. I got my license in the mail. My dad didn't know I got it in the mail yet. He was at work, and I contacted, years ago, we used to have a 1.2 gig repeater here in Memphis. And
Wayne Feeds.
Yeah. And I contacted him over the 1.2 gig while he was on his way home from work. And it's also memorable because he's passed away now. Yes, yes.
I might be able to do the rest of the meeting while I get up. Ron, KM4SYQ, and big thing sticks out to me, isn't really that big, but I was on my way to work one day, and the station came up. I answered them, and they were in central Illinois on 2 meters.
I think we've got everybody other than me. Everybody's had a chance?
Yeah.
So I'll close this out. My favorite contact was indeed my first contact, which was Whiskey Hotel 7 Tango in Kauai, mangled that badly, Hawaii. It was my first contact, cranked it up 10 meters, and I got Hawaii. I was like, I could not believe that I could have gotten that far on my first contact. So that was fun. So thank you for taking the time. That's a little longer than we normally do, but I think it's appropriate for a conversation about Field Day that we talk about contacts and the importance of them and the memory of them when we talk about Field Day. Because Field Day is about getting out in the field and making contacts with other people in our hobby and showcasing our hobby to our community and showing what it can do. Like Carolyn said about letting the British know that their islands are being invaded, or letting people know that things are going on they might not be aware of, or that the storm is taking out power. And that's the power of amateur radio and the hobby that we have, and just the fun of being able to do that and make contacts. So with that, I do want to take two things. We'll move real quick because we want to get into the program. I hope everybody, when you came in, there's little gray tickets up here at the front. Grab one, put your name on the back, put your call on the back. Drop it in the bucket. We have a wonderful event in November where we have a bunch of door prizes, and all the monthly tickets go into that bucket. And I've got our new technician's ticket up here. I'll come see you and get you an extra that for passing your and getting your technician. All right, with that, we have a moment to do a couple of little quick business things, and we'll jump into the Field Day logging and hands-on power poles. We need to read and approve our minutes.
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made to approve the minutes as published and sparked by Ham and seconded by Don. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. If it's okay with all of the board members, that except we'll give Joe an opportunity to talk about training. Does anybody else have anything that they want to talk or make a specific board member report about? Yes, Dan.
Real quick, the 220 repeaters back up. The 220 repeater is back up on Methodist North, working. Got some temporary cable going, and go back up and fix the connector on the original coax. It had some water incursion and kind of went bad from there, but it's up and running.
All right. Training. Can you hear?
Yeah. Training, have a schedule for a tech class to start June 30th on 6 Monday nights from 6:15 to 9:30, excluding July the 14th. Will be at the Memphis Police Department Atling Farm Station training room. I've got 6 students now. We'd like to have 10 in the class to make it an effective class. I do want to thank the instructors that are here. Carolyn is one, Steve Frazier, Perry Hayes, Paul Broom, or some of the instructors. Thank them for their time. Also, we've got Huntsville Ham Fest. I will take cash or check tonight for your reservation for the Huntsville Ham Fest. Who is wanting to go on the bus, so I have an idea of Jonathan, Perry? Well, you're already there. I got
several behind you there.
Dave. Okay, great. Yeah, we need to get probably 25 on the bus to make it worthwhile, to where the club doesn't go in a whole bunch. We were very fortunate last year to have a benefactor that paid a $1,200 sum to get us over the hump. But if you are going to go, send me an email at wa4ovo@gmail.com and say that you're wanting to go but just haven't paid yet, and that way at least we have an idea who is wanting to go. But it's August the 16th. For a new ham that's wanting to see equipment, Huntsville Ham Fest is a good one. The $100 fee includes the bus transportation, the entry fee to the Ham Fest, 2 Danvers breakfast biscuits of ham, sausage, or plain, water, sodas, cookies, crackers, and fruit on the way down during the day, whatever's left over on the way back. The bus backs up to the loading dock to where you can bring equipment that you buy during the day and not have to carry it around all the time. Nice, comfortable seats, and we'll leave Germantown Baptist Church at 6:30 in the morning promptly, and get down there about 9:45. Be sure, if you do go, to fill out your tickets and put it in the barrel, so it'll be in the barrel for the 10 o'clock drawing. And then we will leave after the 4 o'clock door prize drawing and get back about 8 o'clock at night.
You're waiting on me to win the grand prize.
Thank you, Joe. Any other board member that would like to make a report?
If you hadn't been to Hamfest before, it's worth it. That was my first time last year. It was awesome. Planning to go back again this year.
It was a ton of fun. All right, I want to take a real quick break. Everybody stretch their legs, and then we'll jump into the program with Josh on field day and logging, and then some hands-on power poles, and we'll knock this out and try to get everybody back out on time. And if you haven't filled out your tickets, please fill out your tickets. See y'all back in 5 minutes at 7:55, please.